In 2018, the Earth was attacked by extraterrestrial creatures, and news reports are coming out about the incident. Chicago was placed under military rule, and a statewide emergency has been declared due to the alien invasion that has taken place. Police have barricaded the main roads leading out of the city. In the middle of all this chaos, people are trying to leave the city in their cars as quickly as possible. The Drummond family is one of the families trying to flee the state in their car with their two teenagers, Gabriel and Rafe. With John Drummond, the father, being a detective, he tries to show his badge to one of the officers and leave, but the officer at the scene confronts him about the lockdown orders. John doesn't answer back. Instead, he puts the car in reverse gear and quickly leaves to find another way despite the officer's repetitive orders to stop the car. John's wife gets scared after seeing her husband's dangerous maneuver to escape the officer, who fires a couple of rounds at them and urges him to consider other options. Still, John was determined to fight back after regrouping. After hitting some barricades, John drives the car into a tunnel, but he stops when he sees a bright light with some alien movements. His wife got scared and kept shouting at him to turn around, but he froze for some seconds. Gabriel and Rafe watch everything that is happening from the back seat. One of the aliens approaches the vehicle. As the alien changes its physical appearance, the brothers get very scared, but they survive the incident. In the coming years, the world leaders are shown to surrender to the aliens to avoid being annihilated. Humans all over the world are now forced to build an underground living space for the aliens called closed zones. Some have submitted to the new world and helped the aliens, profiting themselves in the process order, but few have raised up arms against this tyranny and launched an unsuccessful attack against the closed zones. 9 years after the first alien invasion, Chicago Police Special Branch Commander William Mulligan, former partner of John Drummond, is surveilling Gabriel Drummond, who lives in the impoverished region of the Pilsen neighborhood. After visiting a prostitute, Jane Doe, and receiving a mysterious package before leaving, Mulligan goes back to the police station and speaks with Kermode, another member of the police, about the Phoenix Resistance Group, whom he believes have not been neutralized despite the public opinion. Mulligan gets to his office filled with papers of evidence and tries to describe the gravity of the situation to Kermode, stating that the failed attack at Wicker Park was not the end of the group. He believes the group has regrouped in Pelson and tells Kermode that he has reported the matter to his superiors. Meanwhile, two members of the resistance, Charles and Patrick, are seen meeting in an old abandoned stairway found near a railway and speak about another upcoming strike on the closed zones. After the conversation, Patrick walks into an abandoned school bus where he speaks to Rafe about the attack on the Unity rally at Soldier Field. Gabriel, on the other hand, is seen arriving at a data reclaiming center where he works as a technician who disassembles different phones and computer parts. He signs into work using a device buried in his neck. After working for a while, it was time for his lunch break, during which he was met by another coworker. She shows him the piece of paper, which contains some written information on it, and rolls it into a cigarette before handing it over to him. He puts it on the top of his ear and covers it with his hoodie. Simultaneously, the news is reporting about the rally being one of the rare occasions Gabriel goes out of work and sees a woman get arrested by unknown individuals, as the device on her neck is activated, and a swarm of mini-drones along with a droid approach her. But he keeps walking after adjusting his hoodie. Later, while staring at an alien transportation device that looks like a rock, he hears a whistle from behind and finds it to be Yorgis, his friend. He shows Gabriel a car that is only missing gas and a loaded gun he traded for cash. They get into an argument and flee the scene when they hear the sound of the police. But not long after running through a tunnel, Gabriel sees Mulligan in his police car nearby. He gets into the car ordered by Mulligan, who offers him something to eat. Mulligan asks him about the Phoenix Resistance, but Gabriel refuses to cooperate and he lets him go. After a while, Gabriel arrives at a workplace where he meets Raul Casillas, a member of the Phoenix Resistance, to sell the cigarette containing the information. Gabriel thought it was a simple exchange, but Raul forces him to get into a van. He puts a collar that helps them avoid being tracked with their implant on Gabriel's neck as Gabriel keeps begging for his life and takes him to a place full of shipping containers. Then he takes him to a familiar place, the Wicker Park, a town full of buildings and ruins. Gabriel is scared, but Raul, who is now wearing the same collar on his neck, tells him to go to one of the buildings if he is still interested in getting paid for the information. Gabriel arrives at the supposed house and takes off the collar. After seeing Rafe's cave, Rafe appears from behind and talks to him about it. Gabriel is happy to see his brother alive and hugs him. Breathing heavily, he asked Rafe what happened during the attack. Rafe told him the roaches, the alien forces, got to them first, and he was the only one that made it out. Then Rafe shows him the scar on his neck and tells him that he took out his implant, enabling him to be off the grid. Gabriel asks why he didn't come to find him, but Rafe mentions the danger of being reported. After expressing his excitement about getting back with his brother, Gabriel tells him about his plan to leave town with his friend, but Rafe tells him he is not coming with him, and gives him money to help him leave the city as the Resistance is about to launch an attack. Gabriel gets up and asks him to come with him, but Rafe's reaction means he is going to stay. He tries his best to convince his brother to leave, but Rafe's mind is made up. He tells him the coming strike is going to prove to the whole world that the aliens can be beaten and give hope. In the middle of their heated argument, an electronic whistle is heard from outside, and Rafe tells Gabriel to leave immediately. Before parting from each other, he gives him the collar and promises to find him when it is all over. After his brother leaves, Rafe goes upstairs and cuts open the cigarette. After seeing the written information on it, he attaches it to the leg of a bird and sends it out. Then he disposes of other pieces of information about the plans of attack and shaves his beard to change his appearance. Mulligan is in a surveillance van and locates Gabriel by tracking him. Gabriel arrived at the apartment, where his girlfriend Rula is enjoying herself in a tub. She goes out to find her boyfriend packing in a hurry. As Rula appears to be confused, Gabriel tells her he is in trouble and mentions to her that Rafe is alive. She is convinced when she sees the large amount of money Rafe gave him and curiously asks him to know more. But at the same time, Mulligan and his team are listening in on the conversation between the two as the apartment is bugged. Rula doesn't want to leave because she doesn't think it is safe outside, but Rafe tells her about the attack being planned by the Resistance. After gathering enough evidence through the recording, Mulligan orders the other members in the van to type it and send it to the headquarters quickly. Then, he gets out of the van and comes face to face with Gabriel. He sees Rula through a window and makes a connection about the whole thing. He flees the scene quickly on foot, but Mulligan follows him, using his car, and tracks him using the neck implant. Gabriel moves through the neighborhood and gets into an underground place, fitting himself through an opening of roof steel. Then, when he was walking to take a turn, he slipped and fell. Slowly, an alien voice starts to be heard, and Gabriel tries to escape the place, searching for a way out instinctively. When he knew all his exits were blocked and aliens, he got into one room and closed it. But he sees an alien creature attaching its parts to the window of the room, and when the tracking device on his neck is beating, he uses the collar. Mulligan loses the signal and gets back to the police headquarters, but the aliens kept circling Gabriel's position. Mulligan gets into his office and removes the deceased tag on Rafe's photo. At the same time, Rafe's bird arrives at the base of the Resistance and gets received by Patrick. The information on the cigarette paper is used by a systems analyst, Ivan Lviv, to lock onto an implant tracker signal of the deputy mayor, Robert Watts. Then Theo, an errand boy of the Resistance, goes out of the building to make a call on a payphone across the street. The short message is received by Charles, who works at the Chicago Head, a famous newspaper in Chicago. He gets approval to print out a late article from his female boss. The advertisement contains the symbol of the Resistance and other means, including a radio station, different members of the Resistance, including a female mechanic called Anita, and a family man, Evan. After some time, Harrison Ma, a medical student member of the Resistance, carrying a steel briefcase, arrives at a certain building to meet with the Resistance members. They all take turns getting into an operating room where they are held down by restraints as Harrison removes the implant from their neck using his instrument. As he quickly removes the bug from Anita, the errand boy is seen attaching it to a rat. Later, Patrick meets with another member of the Resistance who works in the morgue, who shows him a couple of implants removed from dead people. 3 of them were from inside people with spotless records, and the other 3 were good enough to be used for the drivers. Next, Rafe arrives at an abandoned church building to meet with a resistance member called Eddie. Together, they walk into the home of a black woman who presents them with an alien explosive organic material that invisibly attaches to cloth and is undetectable to scanners in exchange for valuable church antiques. Then Rafe takes the explosive material to a strip club where he meets with Patrick, who carefully works on the material to arm it and manages to do it with a high precision. After that, Rafe, Patrick, and Eddie get into the changing room of the Stripers, where the other members of the Resistance, including Daniel, a male stripper, are waiting. After everyone gathers their attention, Patrick begins explaining the time at which the new implants are going to expire. He also tells them not to contact any of the family members before or after the operation, as it will put everything at a high risk. Everyone takes their respective implants. Patrick shows them the picture of Robert Watts and tells them he is the one that will get them closer to their target. After their discussion, the group gets downstairs and travels in 2 cars. Mulligan is seen looking at his TV, where the host speaks at the rally in a stadium full of people. As the speech was going on, the Resistance members, including Rafe, approached the rally. Rafe walks into the rally with his red jacket from a security company and passes through the scanner easily with the help of his implant. The same thing happened with the others as they got to the stadium without any problem using their fake implants. Outside of the stadium, Anita and Evan wait inside their cars while the rally continues to be heard from the stadium. With Robert Watts coming out to the field along with high government officials, the group prepares to launch an attack. But Robert Watts doesn't come through the planned entrance and changes direction. Rafe reports this change of plans to Patrick, who tells him to go around the other way towards the tunnel behind him. As it was time to accept the aliens, Daniel approaches Robert Watts in the tunnels and talks to him as if he recognizes him. Rafe uses this opportunity to attach the invisible bomb to the back of the distracted Robert, pretending to bump into him. After Rafe and his members leave the stadium, Robert Watts approaches a couple of aliens in the tunnel with some government officials. Then, the bomb explodes and the attack seems successful. News reports started coming about the attack, showing people running in the middle of the chaos. Then an alien drone is seen scanning the implants of everyone coming out of the stadium before the lights go out of the surroundings. The Resistance members try to escape using the cars of their fellow drivers who arrive at the scene. Eddie the priest gets shot by the police, but Daniel escapes in Anita's car. Rafe, on the other hand, gets caught by an alien after running into a parking space. The alien transforms itself into an attack mode and begins hunting him. Rafe tries to escape it by getting into one of the cars, but the aliens break in and almost stab him. Daniel arrives at the scene in Anita's car, sprays a fire extinguisher to help Rafe, and kills the alien after a brief struggle. Rafe escapes with them and they show faces of excitement as the mission appears to be a successful one. Meanwhile, Gabriel has escaped from the alien, but the boat was on fire and Gabriel gets angry and throws everything he can at the burning boat. He then hears an alien sound near the area and escapes after putting on the collar. As for the Resistance, everyone including Rafe goes their separate ways after rendezvousing at an underground place and burning their escape car. After the attack, the city gets locked down and security forces swarm the place. Mulligan arrives at the station as Commissioner Igo makes a statement to the press. Igo then tells Mulligan that the aliens are bringing in hunters from off-planet in response to the attack. Mulligan wants time to investigate and bring down the whole network of the Resistance, but Igo says the aliens are going to take care of the mess and urges him not to make things difficult with his nonsense. Then, Igo gets into a sanitizing machine before he meets the aliens and mentions the excitement of seeing the aliens' residence, as the Commissioner is the only one allowed to meet with them. Igo puts on his breathing equipment and walks into the underground. He leaves one last message to Mulligan before descending into a shaft, instructing him to stand down and let the hunters do their job. After a while, special police forces arrive at the base of the Resistance and round up everyone in the building, including Jurgis. A masked officer begins harassing him, and Jurgis confronts him after getting triggered by a shove he received. The masked officers easily beat up Jurgis, but Gabriel appears out of nowhere and pulls out a gun. Mulligan unmasks himself and approaches Gabriel, daring him to shoot. Then, Mulligan goes to Evan's home. When Evan calls to check on his wife and kid, Mulligan picks up and asks him to give up the other members of the Resistance. At a bus station, Rafe, Daniel, and Anita are set to leave Chicago. Rafe and Anita are on the same bus while Daniel is on the other. The buses started moving, but the lights went out before they could go further, and they stopped. The off-world hunters get into the buses and drag Daniel out, but he avoids getting arrested by taking his own life using a cyanide pill. Seeing the death of Daniel, Anita runs towards one of the hunters and gets vaporized instantly. Rafe tries to escape and is about to take his cyanide pill when Mulligan arrives at the scene and shoots it out of his hand. At the police station, Mulligan unmasks Gabriel in the interrogation room. Gabriel asks for a lawyer, but Mulligan tells him those days are long gone, and mentions being the one that burned his escape boat. Gabriel clearly states that he is not going to be a snitch, but Mulligan uses the soft spot he has for his brother. After seeing Gabriel won't budge, Mulligan takes him to see Rafe being tortured. Rafe repeatedly tells his brother not to cooperate, but Gabriel is terrified to see his brother tied and beaten up. Rafe gets upset and shouts as he sees his brother leaving the place. Gabriel's back in the interrogation room. Mulligan tells him that the legislators are preparing to destroy Pilsen, similar to Wicker Park, in response to the attack. Mulligan tells him to send a message through Phoenix's network in exchange for letting his brother. Gabriel agrees, and runs to do as agreed. Mulligan follows him using a drone that tracks him using the implant. Gabriel gets inside a van and travels to a building where Theo, an errand boy of the Resistance, holds him at gunpoint. Gabriel mentions he is Rafe's brother, and Patrick comes out to calm Theo down. Patrick receives the message, which is the mark of a Phoenix Resistance in a newspaper advertisement. While all of this is happening, Mulligan is tracking everything, and his team is listening in on the conversation. Later, Patrick meets Charles at their usual place. Charles is nervous and mentions everyone should have been gone by now. Charles knows they got Rafe at the bus station, but Patrick shows him Gabriel, who has come along with him, and tells him that he has asked to be taken to number 1. Gabriel is taken into a car by both Charles and Patrick, who drive him to the Pilsen brothel. Charles gives Gabriel a sign and tells him to follow the woman sitting outside. Mulligan gives the order to surround the building, and police officer cars are seen moving in on the drone footage. Gabriel slowly opens the bedroom. Surprisingly, number 1 is revealed to be the prostitute Jane Doe. She was sitting next to her desk with a handgun and greeted him, calling his name. Gabriel is extremely shocked to see her and asks how she knew his name, but before she says anything, Mulligan gives the order to break in and a masked female officer shoots and kills her. Mulligan arrives at the scene after Gabriel is removed from the room. When Kermode asks him if he knows the place, Mulligan denies it. Kermode didn't understand when he discovered that the clip of the gun was empty. Then, a recording device is found behind a picture hanging in the room, and they follow its wire that was hidden and plastered on the wall to another room that has a hidden compartment behind the cloth cabinet. Inside was a tape recorder and a computer being charged. Mulligan walks into the Chicago Police Department headquarters building to debrief high government officials of the closed zone and the aliens, who were communicating with a translator. He begins to explain information about the computer they found. It contained all the names, aliases, and locations of the Chicago Resistance Network. He kept explaining by showing them the evidence named Jane Doe as their leader and displayed a flow diagram that listed the dead leaders of the Resistance, including Patrick and Charles. After their number 1 leader was captured, different members of the Resistance took their own lives through various means, except for Theo, the errand boy, who was left alone to sleep on his bed. Mulligan concludes his report, confidently assuring his superiors that the Chicago network is neutralized. Then he was asked about the true identity of the prostitute. Mulligan reveals that her name was Priscilla Scott, and she was a history teacher at Pilsen Elementary. When her photo was displayed at the debriefing, Gabriel and Rafe's mother could be seen standing next to her. He continues his report and plays a tape that incriminates Commissioner Eugene Igo for giving sensitive information about the arrival of the aliens to the Soldier Field rally. After the briefing, Igo, Rafe, and many other members of the Resistance are taken off-world, and Mulligan is promoted to acting commissioner and ordered to report to the closed zones. Later, Mulligan meets Gabriel privately. They argue with each other about Rafe, but Mulligan reveals a shocking fact, stating the plan all along was for the attack to fail. Then he gives Gabriel a memory card out of a BlackBerry phone he was carrying. Rafe continues his life and goes to work. He plays the memory card he received from Mulligan and sees video footage of his own baby shower, where his mother is introduced to Mulligan with several Phoenix Resistance members present. The video ends with an inspirational message from Mulligan. Meanwhile, Mulligan goes to meet with the underground legislators, and as he descends wearing the necessary breathing equipment, an invisible, powerful explosive takes hold of him and destroys everything. And with that, the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed our recap. Like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing recaps. See you in the next one.